Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story that has shaken the Christian education community, outraged parents, and raised serious questions about trust, leadership, and accountability. This is the story of Brian McKinney, a man who once held highly respected positions in Christian schools, but who now faces public backlash and demotion after parents discovered a deeply troubling decision from his past: the hiring of a registered sex offender, Ammons, to work in a Christian academy. This video will take a close look at what happened, why it matters, and what lessons we must all take away about leadership, transparency, and protecting children in Christian environments. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, because this is not a short story. This is something that deserves careful, honest conversation. To understand the gravity of this story, let's first take a step back and talk about who Brian McKinney is. McKinney built his career in Christian education. He served as the headmaster of Park Avenue Christian Academy in Florida, and later as the principal of Tri-Cities Christian Academy in Tennessee. These are not small roles. Being entrusted as a headmaster or principal means you're responsible for guiding not just academics, but also the spiritual development of hundreds of children. Parents put their confidence in you to uphold moral values, biblical standards, and most importantly, safeguard their children. On paper, McKinney appeared to embody those qualities. But behind the resume and the title, there was a decision, one choice that would ultimately define his reputation. While serving as headmaster at Park Avenue Christian Academy in Florida, McKinney knowingly hired Ammons. Now, who is Ammons? Ammons is a registered sex offender. His criminal record was not hidden, not a mystery, not something that could have slipped through the cracks. It was information that any responsible leader would have considered an automatic disqualification for working in a school, especially a faith-based school. And yet, McKinney allowed him in. He gave Ammons a position of trust. Think about that for a moment. Parents dropped off their children at a Christian school every morning, believing they were leaving their sons and daughters in a safe environment. All the while, a registered sex offender had been placed in that very institution, not by accident, but by decision. When parents eventually discovered this, the reaction was swift and furious. Many felt betrayed. Some asked, how could a Christian leader, someone tasked with shepherding children, make a decision like this? For families, this was not just about one man's poor judgment. It was about broken trust. It was about realizing that the very institutions meant to protect and nurture children had failed to uphold the most basic responsibility: safety. And this anger didn't stop in Florida. When McKinney moved on to Tennessee, becoming principal of Tri-Cities Christian Academy, parents there also learned about his past hiring decision. And once again, outrage spread. As pressure mounted, Tri-Cities Christian Academy made a move. McKinney was demoted from his position as principal. But here's where things get complicated. Instead of being removed from the school entirely, McKinney remained employed in another capacity. For parents, this was not enough. Their concern was clear. If McKinney demonstrated such catastrophic judgment before, why should he be trusted in any educational role whatsoever? This is where the heart of the issue lies, not just in the decision itself, but in the lack of transparency, the lack of decisive accountability, and the failure to prioritize the concerns of parents and the safety of children. And friends, this story isn't just about one man or one school. It's about a pattern we've seen in too many Christian institutions: the failure of accountability. All too often, when scandals or poor decisions surface, leadership responds with silence, secrecy, or half measures. Instead of confronting mistakes openly, the tendency is to minimize them, shuffle leaders into different roles, or simply hope the controversy fades away. But this approach only deepens the problem, because every time institutions fail to come clean, every time they choose reputation over responsibility, they erode the trust of families who depend on them. Scripture reminds us in Luke 12:2, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known." Transparency isn't optional, it's a biblical mandate. Let's pause here and reflect on the parents. Imagine being a mother or father in this situation. You entrusted your child to a Christian school because you wanted not just education, but protection. You wanted your son or daughter to be in a Christ-centered environment where moral standards were not only taught, but lived out by leadership. And then you discover that someone with the title of headmaster or principal made the decision to hire a registered sex offender. What would that do to your trust? Would you ever look at that institution the same way again? Many parents in Tennessee and Florida answered that question with a resounding no. Their calls for accountability weren't just about punishment, they were about restoring trust and ensuring that no child would ever be put in such a position again. This also brings us to a deeper question. What does Christian leadership really mean? Being in a position of authority in a Christian school is not just about managing academics. It's about living with integrity, modeling Christ-like behavior, and protecting the vulnerable. Jesus himself said in Matthew 18:6, "If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea." That verse reminds us just how serious God takes the protection of children. Leaders who neglect that responsibility fail not only families, but God himself. So, what can we take away from the Brian McKinney case? 1. Transparency must be non-negotiable. Parents deserve to know the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. 2. Accountability must be real. Demotion is not enough. Serious breaches of trust demand serious consequences. And parents must stay vigilant. Don't be afraid to ask questions, request information, and demand clarity. And Christian institutions must rise to higher standards. It's not enough to be equal with secular organizations. They must set the bar for integrity and protection. Because at the end of the day, this is not just about Brian McKinney or one bad decision. It's about the culture we create in our schools, our churches, and our communities. If you've stayed with me through this story, I want to ask you directly, what do you think should happen here? Should Brian McKinney still be employed at Tri-Cities Christian Academy? Should leaders who make such reckless... I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below. Share your perspective, share your experience. And if you believe this message matters, if you believe children's safety comes first always, then help us spread the word. Hit the like button. Share this video with your friends, church groups, and communities. At the heart of it, this story is not just about controversy. It's about children. It's about trust. And it's about holding leaders accountable when they fail in their most basic duty. The Bible reminds us in Proverbs 10:9, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out." Let's demand integrity. Let's insist on transparency. And let's make sure our schools, especially Christian schools, are safe havens where children can grow in both knowledge and faith. Thank you for watching. Stay vigilant, stay prayerful, and, as always, keep standing for what's right.